Dignified Mrs. Rector, Deputy Rector, dear guests, dear participants, and all those who are here with us in this hall, and those who are here with us in the internet, in Zoom online. So thank you for finding the time, and I would like to start this event, our symposium. So we have the cooperation with the local NGO, with the local authorities for the advocacy of the questions of the Ukrainian war migrants in the country of dear colleagues in the countries of the Visegrad countries. So, dear colleagues, you being here with us here in Lviv Polytechnic University, of course, you have seen that here amidst of us, so we have some empty spaces, empty seats, and there are the tables, and there are the signature that here could see the person who sacrificed their life for us living. And we would like to commemorate those deceased in this brutal war so that we live, and to say thank you to those who are deterring Russian occupants. So let's commemorate them with a minute of silence. Thank you. Be seated. So today, we have the International Institute of the Education and Culture and the Connections with Diaspora will present the results of the projects, the best practices of the non-governmental organizations with local authorities to advocate for Ukrainian military war migrants in the Visegrad countries, together with the Czech Republic, with Poland, together with the Visegrad Foundation support. So we are foreseeing presenting the outcomes and also to talk over together with you, to listen to your results, to listen to your outcome. Maybe you have some remarks. So it's very important for us to hear your estimates. And before we start, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Natalie Chukhrai. She is the PhD in economics, and she is professor, the deputy rector on the scientific and pedagogical work and international relations at the Lviv Polytechnic National University. Ms. Natalie, the floor is yours. Dignified Irina Mikhailivna and dear colleagues and guests, dear Ms. Katerina, and all those present here, let me, on behalf of the top management of our university, congratulate you here in our wonderful hall named after Zakhariyevych, and say that, it's not by chance that we are able to organize such powerful events here in the walls of our university. Lviv Polytechnic University cooperates with many educational facilities all around the globe and implements international projects. And it's also, it has been always in the heart of different scientific events, discussions, scientific disputes. So Irina Mikhailivna, thank you very much for the initiative, because our International Institute of Education and Culture, it's not for the first time for our institute to become this forum for the discussion of the pressing questions. And right now, yes, really, we feel that. But we have a question how to keep in touch with our diaspora, especially when we talk about our military war refugees. Here in our university, we have been thinking about it. We have been designing some strategy as for how to communicate with those who left our country, with our graduates, how to support them, but also, on the other hand, how to combine via the synergy their potential. So, and it's really vital, and I think that every person right now is thinking about this problem. We have some experts who say that, if everything goes according to these dynamics, so we're going to have more refugees than the people inside of Ukraine. And it's very, very painful. Of course, this war brought about a lot of consequences, especially when it comes to the forced migration, starting from as compared with the Second World War. So we hope that our millions of Ukrainians who were forced to leave their houses, that one day they will be able to come back home. So our International Institute of Education and Culture during many years has been researching and trying to be on top of these migrational processes in Ukraine. And we have held several events. And actually, I think that our institute is one of the leading structures with our staff working in this direction. This topic, of course, is very pressing and topical, and but of course, it's a new challenge for Ukraine because, yes, our population is decreasing, and we have to think about our future, of our potential. But also is another problem for the countries, for our adjacent countries and Visegrad Group countries. Starting from the full-scale invasion, all the European countries were not staying aside. No, they were helping us. They provided shelters, assistance, and are continuing doing it up till now. So we appreciate those efforts by our neighbors, and we feel that support daily. And of course, I think that we couldn't be that formidable without their support. I'm convinced that today's discussion is going to have the practical implementation as well. And I hope that there will be a lot of exchange of experience, of opportunities. We're going to consolidate our efforts and support Ukrainian forced migrants. So that is what will lead us closer to our victories. So I wish you to have fruitful cooperation and glory to the armed forces of Ukraine. Thank you for the attention. Thank you, Ms. Natalie. Thank you very much. I understand how busy you are. So right now there are other meetings of the top authorities of the university. So thank you for finding some time. Yes, sorry for leaving, but I have to go. All right. So a lot of participants have been registered in the Western region, around 150 participants from 18 countries. 13 out of these countries are European countries. People are joining and are being registered right now. So we hope that all of these 150 participants will join us online or offline. And as I have already said, today we have the hybrid format of the meeting. And for those people who are on Zoom, we have the option of the interpretation. We have the interpreter working for us. So in case you need to listen, for example, to the English variant or to Ukrainian, just choose the right channel and follow the interpretation. Right now, we also are very glad to have here Ms. Katerina Terek. She is the representative of the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs of Ukraine in Lviv. Ms. Terek, please, maybe you would feel comfortable to sit here closer to me. Feel free to do that. It's a great pleasure to be here. Ms. Irina, dear guests, it's a great pleasure to be here with you. And first and foremost, of course, I would like to say that was a great pleasure to receive the invitation to take part in this symposium. And of course, first of all, I would like to mention how important it is, the topic of our symposium, because forced war, refugees, and migrants, that's the question that entails a lot of other consequences. And I would like to say that just before the full-fledged invasion, we couldn't even have thought about this term. But right now, this is very topical for us. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is trying to have the whole team task force who is following this question this sector because it's very important for our foreign diplomatic agencies, particularly in the bunch of world countries. The topic of the labor migrants in future, of course, will be settled according to the legislation, and we will have people who will be responsible for this. But in the meantime, our ministry is doing its best to support those who right now are in search of the safety abroad. From my side, I would like to say that we appreciate and we highly value the work of the International Institute of Education and Culture, and we appreciate the efforts of Ms. Irina Klitschkovska for her active actions and for the dialogue that has been fulfilled and initiated by her and which is continuing up till now, and especially this symposium, which aims to discuss and analyze this outcome of the powerful activities from many NGOs with the support of financing of the Visegrad Group financing. And that's in that in mind, we understand how Ukrainians are conscientious of how we can help ourselves, but also how we cannot do without the support of the others. So it's very important to back up those combat war migrants, refugees who are right now abroad, so that they do not assimilate with other nations, so that they preserve their culture, their traditions, their language, and also and then we hope that those refugees would come back home in Ukraine. Therefore, our country needs to provide the safety for them. So on our side, of course, we are very happy to have a chance to be here. So we wish you fruitful discussion here and the search for the best way to provide advisory support or any other type of support for the war migrants who are right now in the adjacent countries. And also, I would like to thank again to Ms. Irina for her colossal efforts in this direction. And I wish you success. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Katarina. We have a bit changed our agenda. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the organizations of our partners a bit later, but right now I would like to give the floor to Martin Krupa. He is the head of the organization Memory of the Nation from Prague, Czech Republic.
For invitation and to be with you. It's my pleasure to be here. Firstly, I would like to say that we are really gratitude of your struggle. That's not just struggle of the Ukrainian people, but we know that you are fighting for freedom of all Europe. So my organization, we provide material to Ukrainian armed forces. We collected 20 million euros for armed forces since the invasion, and right now we are going to Kiev and Mykolaiv and Kherson with some help, drones and some material as well. Thank you very much. Also, I would like to say very thanks to our colleagues from Ukraine Diaspora because they are really helping a lot with integration of migrants, especially Bohdan Rajchinets and Europe Congress of Ukrainians. They really help a lot because from the first days of war, there was a huge wave of support, and it was necessary to coordinate it. And he and his organization was really helpful. My organization, we are also helping to migrants, especially with children, to how to help them to the Czech educational system, because Czech educational system is quite different than Ukrainian, and that's a huge problem. And in this field, I think that NGOs are very, very important, not just in Czech Republic, but I think in Poland and Hungary also, and Slovakia. My organization, we have two brands also. We are not just in Czech Republic, but we are working also in Slovakia and in Lviv here also as well. So thank you very much for doing this great job, and I hope that we will stay in contact and do more job together. Thank you very much.
Так, дякуємо дуже. Отож, продовжуємо нашу
Thank you very much. So we continue our work. The central topic, the central event of our symposium is the presentation of the outcome of our research, the best practices of the cooperation of the NGOs with the local authorities to advocate the question, the issue of the Ukrainian war migrants. We understand that there was a great necessity and the great need to have this project, and we understand the whole changes in the modern world architecture. As Russia launched the full-scale invasion against Ukraine in February 2022, which led to the great wave of migrants who were fleeing the war. It was unprecedented wave since World War II. And right now we have a lot of forced migrants, IDPs, and those who are asylum seekers and refugees and others. Of course, we understand what history has suffered during the half a century. There were lots of migration crises, but when we talk about the quantitative indexes, the geography, we understand that Ukrainian migration crisis has no analogs, and it is far bigger than all the others. So this situation requires some radical steps, and I would like to remind you that on March the 4th, several days from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the European Council has activated the directive of the temporary protection, which allows people who left Ukraine from 24th of February to have the shelter, the asylum, to have the chance to work, to receive medical protection, and also to have access towards the healthcare system, education, etc. So right now we are all witnesses of the big evolution of the European legislation when we talk about the people with a temporary protection status. And also we see that the new initiatives are upcoming, and without doubt they are directed to support Ukrainians who are in need and who are abroad, but also to those who are aimed at the integration of those people within the environments where they are living. So, starting from the full-fledged invasion, our adjacent countries, particularly the Visegrad countries, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, those countries were supporting our nation, our people, in order to tackle their problems. They mobilized their internal resources for that. An important factor of the successful implementation of the legislation and legislative initiatives was the coordination, interaction between the authorities and the civil sector, civil society. And those NGOs that were operating before the full-fledged invasion and those who were born during the war and who are newborn, as we can call it, and right now they are at the stage of their institutional organization right now. The European Commission in 2021 has voted for the civil engagement as one of the key basic principles of the proper management. And that was one of the pillars for the democratic society development in Europe. On these pillars and also on the other European values, we have the interaction between the authority and civil society. As I have already mentioned, within these processes, there are lots of NGOs involved. Why this project is very important, why it is very topical right now? It's very important both for the NGOs in Europe, those who have to be very attentive while tracking all the processes which are connected with the migration, integration policies, adaptation to the host country's conditions. And also this project is very important here in Ukraine, as we know, and many experts can witness, both military experts. The military actions are ongoing, aggression is still ongoing. It means that those multi-level SMEs right now are talking about the war in Ukraine, and they describe this war as the war of attrition, which will continue for some period of time. What does it mean? It means that our internally displaced people, the number of them will be only increasing. And these practices, which have been used by other NGOs, they can be useful for implementation here in Ukraine. Therefore, the project, the aim of it is to... Okay, so we are changing the slides. The aim of the project is to collect, discuss, analyze, and disseminate best practices of non-governmental organizations in the Visegrad countries in promoting active lobbying for policy changes and good governance of the Ukrainian refugees at the local level. And this project, the duration of the implementation is June 1st, 2024 till January 31, 2025. So our symposium is just an important part of this project. The project implementation included the following stages: 3 workshops with the representatives of the NGOs and local authorities to collect and discuss examples of best practices held in the Czech Republic, Poland, and Slovakia. So these countries, we as the organizers, we chose these countries to cooperate with in future. The next stage is the creating a report on best practices based on the data obtained, that's the policy paper, and holding a symposium to present and discuss the policy paper. It's basically what we are having now. Of course, we would like to say with great pleasure that our partners of the implementation of the project was backed up with the Visegrad International Fund. We have our partners here, those who we are going to cooperate for a long time in future. So we have the Ukrainian initiatives in the Czech Republic, we have the Union of the Russian Ukrainians of the Slovakia, and also the Uniters Foundation in Poland. So thank you to our partners, for the United Volunteers in Poland, etc. Thank you for your trust, for the possibility to cooperate together, so that you found time, understanding that these results will be later on implemented. And we plan to disseminate these outcomes all around Ukrainian NGOs in Europe, in order to use this priceless experience during the 4 workshops with the participations of the NGOs representatives. Around 40 of them were present. So we managed to develop and digest and analyze these best practices. And these NGOs, those who are open for cooperation, it's very important to keep in touch with them. And that's also important for us to use this experience both in Europe and in Ukraine as well. When we talk about the NGOs, yes, we will talk about them for a while, because right now we have We have the possibility to communicate with their representatives here, so we will give them floor and they will introduce themselves in a better way. And right now, I want to say that I'm honored to be the head of the project, to be the coordinator. And I was teamed up with the wonderful employees, researchers, scientists, and the members of the NGO MIOC, and I would like to list them. All of them will be given the floor later on. We have Oksana Piatkovska, the PhD in economics, the deputy director of the International Institute of the Education and Culture, and also the member of the board. Olha Dolinska, the master student and the leading specialist in the migration process. We have Volodymyr Hnatyuk on board. He is the PhD in political sciences. He is scientific researcher in the migrational processes. We also have other members of our organization on board, and we managed to implement this project with their support. We managed to find these best practices. We managed to issue these guides. Yes, please. So these are the guides that we have compiled and translated in 5 languages. And right now, after our event, they will travel around Europe. And I hope that this project will be the good locomotive, a good start for further development of the ideas indicated here, which could develop these practices, and we can get to the next level, which could enrich the interaction between the local NGOs with the local authorities. And right now, I would like to remind you that we have simultaneous interpreting. I'm talking on end. I'm talking very, very quick, so sometimes I try to slow myself down because I understand that everything is being interpreted. So I would like to kindly ask everyone to speak slowly, not to be in rush, so that everything could be interpreted in the right way. All right, so let's start our presentation, and I would like to give the floor Mr. Volodymyr Hnatyuk. Please, the floor is yours. Hello, everyone. Greetings to everyone, both being offline and online. My part of the presentation is connected with the Slovak Republic, and basically from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, all Europe received a lot of Ukrainian migrants and refugees, and the Slovak Republic, as an adjacent country, also took part in these processes, and around lots of Ukrainian refugees live right now there. As for the August 2024, around 150,000 Ukrainians submitted the applications to receive the temporary protection status. That's according to the UN OCHA data. Then we have on the screen the peculiarities of the processes, because the number of Ukrainian citizens in Slovakia with the valid temporary protection status as of the end of the month, so number of persons we have from 2022 till 2024. But we see that every month the number of the Ukrainian refugee is increasing. And by characterizing this data starting from April 2022 till July 2024, we see that the number of the Ukrainian refugees in Slovak has increased by 20%, starting from 60,000. Right now we have 100 and almost 50,000 Ukrainians. So what we can say, I'm sorry, 125,000. So what we can say, first of all, it's because Slovakia is very close to Ukraine. So that was the geographical component. It was close to get there, and then it is close for the Ukrainians to come back home. So here there are certain conditions for the forced migrations to go here and there, back and forth, taking into account the life situations. But also it is worth noting that Slovakia, as compared to Poland, for example, or other European countries, Slovakia cannot host that big number of refugees, but it is very successful in that, and also Slovakia provides this temporary protection status. Then when we talk about the dynamics of the positive decisions on granting temporary protection status to the citizens of Ukraine in Slovakia. So on the screen you can see when was the biggest number of this positive decision on providing the temporary protection status. So we started with 58,000, then there was more than 24,000, and so right now this number is decreasing, but still having in mind the previous slide, we understand that the number of forced migrants increases. I want to know that these are the data from the July 2024. Talking about the gender distribution, and generally, when we talk about the dynamics of positive decisions on granting temporary protection status to Ukrainian citizens in Slovakia, gender disruption, we have the quarterly data. So at first, there were more women, like 65% and 35 males. But next year, in 2023, we see that the tendency has changed. There's like gender balance. And if we change the percent correlations, the 44% men and 56 women. But also when we talk about numbers, everything is against one. 2022, there were like 100,000 migrants and around 30,000 in 2023. When we talk about kids, the kids under 14, so there were more. When we talk about the number of kids, so more kids aged 14, 16, and only 1/4 of those kids, they were under 14 years old. And when we compare the share of the children in comparison with the whole IDP number, so that's around 30% from the overall number of migrants. When we talk about the policy of the Slovak Republic on military migrants from Ukraine, yes, that the foundation for the course of action, that is the directive which was mentioned, which made it possible for the Ukrainians to receive proper services, medical support, etc., education. Also, there is internal legislation, and we had certain laws, regulation, resolutions which were adopted in 2011, 2002 on asylum. But also Slovakia was pretty flexible and adopted amendments to these laws, and they came into action in 2023 or in the middle of 2023. So these two first laws, they have been updated, taking into account the situation which is happening in Ukraine. Also, it is important to mention that it's not just about laws, but also about certain resolutions of the government or certain governmental resolutions or parliamentary regulations, etc. So everything, all these documents can implement certain changes into the legislation on migration. So within this context, we can come to the conclusion that the policy of the Slovak Republic is adaptive and flexible, also reactive. because it manages to react promptly to the whole internal and external environment. We also have to bear in mind that the migration issues in Slovak politics is regulated by two documents. The first one is Strategic Document Integration Policy of the Slovak Republic that was approved in 2014, and the latest one, that is the State Program Migration Policy of the Slovak Republic, the perspective up till 2025 from 2021. So this state program was adopted before the full-fledged invasion, but there were certain changes implemented which are connected with the forced migrants, Ukrainian migrants. So the overall aim of these strategic documents is to promote this process of the co-living of Ukrainians and Slovak people so that they can live in harmony and there could be the positive relations between them. So there should be the context of social coherence and cohesion. It's very important right now, especially when our country wants to grow into the democratic and civilized country. While talking about the role of civil society in helping Ukrainian military migrants, I would like to say that there were lots of changes in Slovakia on the legislation part, and you understand the different changes in legislation. That's pretty time-consuming processes, but Slovak Republic managed to do that. So what is the role of civil society in helping Ukrainian military migrants? I would like to say that the Soviet society, and here we understand different local communities, activists, volunteers, national and local NGOs. So basically, they become an inalienable part in promoting and helping Ukrainian immigrants, and also they support their integration and adaptation in the new environment. So I would like to say that this process was systemic and organized. Why? Because from the beginning, in November 2022, the Memorandum of Cooperation was signed between the Ministry of the Internal Affairs and other NGOs as the reaction to the events in Ukraine. Then, Interagency Slovak Refugee Response Planning Unit was set up. That was an example of partnership between the state and public sector. This means that the state considers this public sector as something which can be effective, active, and as a sector to lean on. Another Slovak Humanitarian Council as a volunteer center was set up, which organized around united more than 100 NGOs. So that's about the horizontal networking and horizontal support to the war migrants. According to the sources, according to the analysis of different practices, it's important to note the role of the religious NGOs in Slovak Republic, which also made a lot within the context, and their role also is very important. Generally, when we analyze the Slovak Republic, so there are some key sectors of the interaction between the local authorities and NGOs. So these were the following areas of cooperation: social, humanitarian, psychological, integrational area, but also legal support, medical support, media support, and also kind of media is very important in order to have the positive image of the forced migrants in Slovakia and in the adjacent countries. It was very essential. Within the context of the hybrid war, it's very important to preserve true message. And inclusiveness, it's very important, again, to have the equality in the society. When we talk about key issues, they're not unique. They are financial issues, material issues. Sometimes we have finances, but unfortunately, we just can't buy and purchase some technical equipment because it's not available. there was some deficit and lack of this. Yeah, that was the hurdles. And also we were pressed for time. We had to respond very quickly and make decisions very fast because the interaction between the local authorities and NGOs, they have different styles, and that required coordination of actions. And of course, human resources, as Slovakia faced another problem, which it hasn't seen before, and therefore we needed more people. When we talk about the facilitating factors, Slovakia had a powerful volunteer movement. There are lots of different NGOs, and they are very efficacious. They can provide the proper result, not within the framework of the interaction between NGOs and between different NGOs, but also within the cooperation between NGOs and authorities. And basically, this led to the great outcome both for integration and adaptation of the migrants from Ukraine. Another point was the external financial assistance from the governments of other countries, particularly from Japan, for example, and also support from the involvement of the international NGOs and other international experts. That was very important to take this former experience, Slovak experience, and then to embed it into the current realia context. So that was a kind of supporting the tradition of supporting. When we talk about involvement of experts, yes, they were not members of NGOs or local authorities, no, but they became this driving force that backed up in terms of scientific and practical way when we talk about the Ukrainian migrants. So that's all on my part. Thank you. Thank you, Volodya, for this report, and we move on. We have another presentation. Olha Dolinska, please, will tell us about the Czech Republic. Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Irina Mikhailovna. Let's get down to our next country, that is Czech Republic. I'm going to start with the key data. According to the UNHCR, we have the overall number of Ukrainian citizens in the territory of the Czech Republic with a valid temporary protection status as of the end of the month. And we see that is around almost 450,000. So when we see the dynamics of the Ukrainians acquiring valid temporary protection status, but starting from March 2023, we see there was a decrease, as you can see on the scale, and the number of those people coming to Czech was around 300 or 350,000 people. What was the reason for that? First of all, the forced migrants were leaving Czech Republic for Ukraine, or maybe they were relocated, for example, to Germany. On the next slide, we demonstrate the dynamics of the positive decisions on granting temporary protection status. You see that the number of those who received the status during the first quarter 2024, we see that we started with the 244,000, then the number of the refugees with the status decreased drastically, and it was around 100,000 people. About the gender distribution, we would like to say that it is pretty balanced. In 2023, 43% these were males and 56% these were women. When we talk about Czech policy towards Ukrainian migrants, it's actually pretty the same as in other countries, as it was managed. There is the directive of the European Union on the temporary protection. A law number 65 was adopted. This is the law on certain measures in connections with the armed conflict on the territory of Ukraine caused by the invasion of Russian troops. This became the main legislation document in the sphere of the Ukrainian refugees protection. There are different appendixes on the humanitarian, social accommodation, and financial support, and also the permit to employ Ukrainian refugees. Here it is worth mentioning that it is important to fulfill the right for job, right to work for Ukrainian, and our people receive this chance to work and to receive the proper social protection as a result of the full-scale invasion by Russia. The law also adopted other documents and amendments which were regarding the national systems on the hosting and reintegration of the forced migrations. These events, they were the consecutive events in order to preserve the sequence and coherence of the support to the Ukrainian refugees. It is worth noting that the overall national policy was pretty positive, but also it is important to say that this policy was backed against the national interests of the organizational course of the host countries. Right. So the work of the civil societies in helping Ukrainian forced migrations, thanks to the NGOs, the forced migrants in the Czech Republic initially received certain basic humanitarian assistance but then, when their specific needs were met, the directions of the institution has changed as well. It was important to provide the access to information, legal advice, medical and psychological support, the guardianship for people, and the possibility to find a job for them, and especially the guardianship for elderly people and people with disabilities. It is important to have the consortium of organizations. It was found as the umbrella organization for the NGOs working with Ukrainian refugees in the Czech Republic. It unites around more than 20 NGOs, which helps migrants to adapt in Czech Republic. So generally, I would like to say that the NGOs have provided the significant support to the state in the implementation of the complex support to the Ukrainian refugees in Czech Republic, and also they were very important foundation for the Ukrainian to lean on. While talking about the best practices of cooperation, of course, it is possible for you to familiarize yourself with some specific examples in our detailed guide. Right now, I will just be brief. First of all, let's talk about the main areas of activity. I just selected several of them. We have 4 of them in Czech Republic. The first one, that's integration and adaptation support. For example, one of the projects within this direction was the creation of different integrational centers all around Czech Republic, which supported Ukrainian migrants. These migrants could have a chance to communicate, to spend time with them, and also will understand the benefits of staying in the country. Then we had the psychological support, which kind of psychology sessions or maybe group therapy. One of the examples here was the art therapy. Informational support. Within this direction, we can talk about the series of workshops, lectures, seminars with experts who were explaining the peculiarities of staying in Ukraine, also about certain laws within the country, and also about the rights that our Ukrainians have in Czech Republic. And the 4th dimension was the cultural support. Here we can talk about different festivals, concerts. So we wanted to support the Ukrainian culture, to preserve communication, and also to connect Ukrainian IDPs together. The main types of interaction, first of all, it's important to have proper financial support for the implementation of a project or initiative. So this a rent of premises and equipment or purchase of certain goods, maybe providing food or maybe reimbursement of the travel fares, etc. And also we had direct support. Here it is about the providing and sharing information, consulting, intangible assistance in project implementation. So here it can be actually the approval, to help this project or some massive rally, etc. When we talk about some key factors for success here, I would like to mention the professional and proactive project team, openness of the authorities to cooperation and interaction, and also support and effective cooperation with project partners. Yes, a lot of initiatives were supported not only by local authorities, but also by other local NGOs. And as for the main problems here, first of all, I would like to separate the financial instability. Here it's worth noting that very often financing is being distributed to some specific projects, but not for the project activities on a general scale. Therefore, it's very difficult to plan projects because very often we lack finances, etc. Another problem is the lack of human resources. Partially, this problem is connected with the financial instability, because even though you have certain financing for the project, very often it does not cover some remuneration for the team, and therefore people have to think whether they're going to work on the voluntary basis, or maybe they have to work and provide a living for their family. Another problem is the burnout, which is connected with the fact that people are overloaded with the big volume of work. Another problem is the search for premises for project implementation. It also is connected with the financial instability. There is no possibility for the long-term rent, it is necessary to find another premises per another project, and that also complicates the work. And another problem which the NGO voiced, that is the difficult and unstable situation in Ukraine, which hurdles the future project planning. Sometimes there are situations which requires rapid response, and the preparation and the project implementations is done within very short limits and under extremal conditions. So that means the whole NGOs teams have to be adaptive and flexible, but sometimes it's very difficult to find this flexibility. That's all on my part. I would like to give the floor to our colleagues. Yes, we travel to Poland with Oksana Piatkowska. Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Irina Mikhailovna. I would like to continue with the Poland, and I will start with the policy, because Poland, as the majority of European countries, they have to fulfill the EU directive on the temporary protection. And on March 12, 2022, they launched the law on assistance to citizens of Ukraine in connection with the armed forces on the territory of this state. And this law, during the full-fledged invasion, has been adapted, and there were certain amendments, particularly in July this year. So it has been changed with regard to the conditions, with regard to the social bonuses, but basically the overall basis remains the same. It has a lot of in contact with the other laws in other countries. Ukrainians received the tax numbers, they had the chance to be employed, they had a chance to become entrepreneurs, they had the right for free education, for the children, bonuses, and also the free medical service. I could not but mention the dynamics. As for the June 2024, the overall number of those who submitted the application to receive the temporary protection status in Poland amounts to 1.8 million people, but when we talk about officially registered Ukrainians in Poland. So it is about more than 950,000 Ukrainians. Here on the screen, you can see the dynamics of the increasing and decreasing the number of Ukrainians who ended up in Poland. The positive scaling up was up till the end of 2022, but then the numbers decreased, and in April 2022, the number of the temporary protection status people was more than 1 million people. So you can understand what are the flows of the migrants, and you can imagine their numbers that appeared, and also the challenges Poland faced with during the first 2 months of the full-fledged invasion. When we talk about the first year of the war, 2022, during the first 6 months, the temporary protection status was acquired by more than 70% of all Ukrainians in Poland. And the similar situation was in Czech Republic as well. But the number of positive decisions to provide temporary protection status in 2023, so there were more than 200 people who received that. So we that migration peak was during the first 6 months in 2022. And when we talk about the gender equality, the situation is similar to the other countries, and 67% of people were women at the beginning, and the share of kids at the beginning of the full-fledged invasion was more than 53% during the first 6 months of 2022, but then this share of children decreased. With such a dynamics in mind, the reaction of the civil society was immediate. So when we talk about numbers, so according to the assessment of Polish Institute of Economics, during the first 3 months of full-fledged invasion, Poles donated 5.5 billion zlotych for the needs of Ukrainian refugees. And also, we understand that all the number of these donations during the 2021 was 3 billion zloty, but during the first 3 months of the full-scale war, they donated 5.5 billion. So you see the increase. Around 67% of Polish population supported Polish refugees, and 35% joined volunteer movement and the activities of NGOs. So we see how Poles generated when it comes to the retraining of and reorienting of certain NGOs with regard to the supporting of Ukrainian IDPs. So in our report, you can see the practices which were presented by the organizations, NGOs, those who were set up before and after full-fledged invasion. These organizations were on the stage of the initiation, but then they developed into the full-fledged organizations. Then we talk about the UNHCR programs to support civil society engagement. It's very important to coordinate the efforts of the civil sector. In March 2022, the refugee coordination model has been adopted, and this program entailed involvement of the national partners. We see here the financing that has been allocated to these projects, and also there were annual budgets more than $1 billion US dollars. Then I move on to the best practices of the NGOs in cooperation with local communities, authorities. So we have here the directions, and I would like to say that the Poland situation is similar to the situation in Slovak Republic and Czech Republic. A very important direction was the humanitarian block, meeting these basic needs. As I mentioned, there was the big floor of people, more than 1 million refugees coming from Ukraine to Poland. And of course, there was great need in humanitarian support. Again, it is important to meet basic needs, accommodation, medicines, etc. That's the main corner sector which has been implemented and where there was the active support between the NGO sector with local authorities. Then another block is information block. We had this hotline and hotline centers because people were thirsty for information. So basically, you can read in our report how many people received this information, how many of them used these services in Warsaw alone. And there was also another need to receive information as for how to receive temporary protection status, how to submit documents, how to enroll kids to school. And another blog that was like informational media blog. I could not by mention because it was activities aimed to digest the information in mass media. They were looking for fakes from pro-Russian sources. It was the combating disinformation part. We know certain cases which were in Poland, and Ukrainian civil society was very active to learn and tackle these fakes and disinformation. They promoted positive Ukrainian refugees image. Another block is the educational and scientific and analytical. NGOs were very active in terms of the discussing and tackling the problems within the research area. So we made a lot of analysis. There were lots of discussion forums and also the attraction of the NGO representatives, scientific institutions, and governments, etc. So we provided a lot of analytical reports, etc. And this work is ongoing. Social integration component here. Here, by this, I mean, again, to master the language of the host country, psychological adaptation, common events with participation of the forced migrants, refugees, and also representatives from Polish communities. One of the examples is how we managed to clean our forests and parks. So that was a very nice integration event because it raised ecological awareness of Ukrainians and showcasing how Ukrainians are helping the host communities who did these useful deeds. And educational component, this is about certain trainings for the refugees. And also there are certain trainings as for how to set up your own business, the cultural events, training, educational trainings on the ecological awareness, creation of educational manuals, etc. So we continue. When we talk about the best practices of the NGOs in cooperation with local authorities, yes, when you talk about forms, this is direct financial assistance for the activities of organizations, provision of premises of local municipalities for use by the NGOs on a free or charge basis on the preferential financing terms. Yes, as I have said, new organizations showed up and they needed these premises, so we have this local cooperation, local level cooperation. We involved our local deputies, and actually I already said about this cleaning of the forests and parks, so that was one of the initiatives. Also here we talk about the participation in conferences, social events, analytical reports, etc. And also the continuous direct interaction with the NGOs, in particular for the provision and exchange of information, for example, counseling with local governments, social protection services, social support centers, labor office, etc. So they had nice cooperation with our NGOs. They were very open and provided the necessary information. So what were the key success factors? Of course, the civil society activity. I already voiced the data, and there was a very rapid response from the Polish society as for the challenges they faced with back then, by them at the beginning of the full-fledged invasion. Also, the previous experience of organizations and trust of Ukrainian forced refugees in NGOs. It's very important component because migrants were coming to the NGOs for counseling rather than the governmental institutions. So after the NGOs had pieces of advice, they were moving forward to the governmental institutions to receive what additional opportunities to attract funding from international donors. Yes, we had the UNHCR, how they donated, how they coordinated efforts, etc. That was one of the examples, but also it is important to enter the national and international level, creating consortia. Certain consortium was created in Poland. The 9 NGO joined, and starting from 2022, this consortium started working more actively, focusing on the problems of the Ukrainian refugees. For all that, there were also some problems. Yes, there was big support, financial support. There was support from international donors as well. Still, there was certain financial instability. There was not regular support to provide the activity of the NGOs on the proper level, and so this can be lasting support. Other these were legal difficulties of registration. This problem was voiced by different initial organizations who were in the process of being registered, so still there are certain legal nuances. Another problem, that was the political uncertainty in Poland, changes in central and local authorities after 2023. So it means that those people who were the authorities at the beginning of the full-fledged war, they started this cooperation, they were substituted by other people elected, so the direction of support has also changed. So unfortunately, this work has been somehow complicated. Our NGO representatives emphasized the lack of the long-term strategies and approaches in Poland's policy towards Ukrainian refugees at the national level. If there is certain national level policy, it is easier to work on the local level. And of course, the influence of Russian propaganda, the one we were trying to combat, it was very sensitive, and that was the problem faced by the NGOs, especially when we talk about the cooperation with the local authorities. Yes. Thank you for your attention. And I would like to give the floor to Ms. Irina. Thank you, dear colleagues. You see that the colossal amount of work have been done. We have this analytical report, but would we be able to do this without the support from our partners? Of course not. They were the ones who implemented these practices. These were the people who were discussing them. So they provided materials. So I would like right now to give the floor to Bogdan Radchenets. He is the president of the European Congress of Ukrainians and the head of the Ukrainian Initiative in Czech Republic, our multi-year partner. Please, Bogdana, the floor is yours. Do we have Bogdan? Do we have Bogdan with us? Mr. Bogdan, please, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you as yet. You have your mic on, good. So we see there is some technical problem. Okay, while Mr. Bogdan is having some technical problem and he's working on that, do we have Viktor Bordunchin? We have him here. Please, Mr. Viktor Bandurchin. Oh, we have Pavlo Bogdan here. All right, so let's start with Slovakia. Pavlo Bogdan, he is the head of the Russian Ukrainians of the Slovak Republic here with us. Sorry, Pan Bandurchin, Viktor Bandurchin. Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, but yes. Thank you very much for having me here. I congratulate all of the participants of the symposium. I'm the representatives of the NGO, of the Union of the Russians of Ukrainians in Slovakia. I would like to say several words about our organization. Our union is the NGO which has multi-year experience into how to cherish the cooperation between Ukrainians and Slovak people within the education and culture. In 2012, 2014, within the EU program, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and others. So we created the Educational and Cultural Center, and within the program of the Trans-Border Cooperation Program, we organized the project and at the beginning of the full-fledged invasion, the coordination center to support Ukrainian refugees in Slovakia was set up. So we were supporting Ukrainian refugees, forced migrants from Ukraine. So 90% of them, these were female and children. So we provided the necessary support. Yes, everything has been already set in detail, but I would like right now just to tackle some other points. So as for now, we have around 440,000 refugees from Ukraine. These are official ones, but we understand that in practice there are more of them, and they have this temporary protection status. As for the project, within the framework of our project, we discuss the best practices of cooperation between NGO and local authorities when it comes to the forced migrants from Ukraine, which was developed with the support of the International Foundation on Refugees, and also with the support with the International Institute for Education and Culture and the connections with the diaspora. So now we had the third workshop within this project finished before this symposium, and we have the partners from the Ukrainian initiatives in Slovak Republic and also the United Union. Workshop in Slovakia was pretty intense and effective. We had 19 participants from 15 NGOs and also from representatives from the Slovak authorities. All of them had a chance to interact with each other, to share their experience when it comes to the active provision of support to those in need. And the key topic of the workshop was the promotion of the cooperation between the civil unions, between NGOs, between authorities, local and national. And also we were focusing on the tackling the problems of the forced migrants from Ukraine. Then we were discussing the topic of the influence of the Ukrainian refugees and how they accommodate and live and assimilate in Slovakia. We had fruitful cooperation here as well. We were sharing positive and negative experience while tackling the issues. And also many other speeches and theses were collected. I was very brief, yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you for attention. And I wish you to have success in your work. Thank you, Mr. Bandurchin, for the cooperation. All right, could you please tell me, Mr. Pavlo Bogdan, are you ready to speak?
Hello? Hello? Доброго дня.
Hope you can hear me.
Так, ми чуємо, але не бачимо.
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you. I just can't switch on my camera. I'm sorry for that. But if you can hear me, that's great. I would like to congratulate all of the participants of the symposium. Of course, we gladly took part in this project, and it's important to keep up the general conditions of Ukrainian migrants. And as it was rightly mentioned, legislation was the key part here. Mr. Workshop already mentioned about the workshop organized by us, and I also would like to reiterate this topic that he mentioned at the end. That was the topic about the broadening of our program. And also it is important to know the influence of the refugees to the authentic Ukrainian population in the eastern part of Slovakia, and also vice versa, how this population hosted Ukrainian refugees. It's a very, very interesting topic, which really worth attention, both in other countries, so they can have a closer look to that, because this is what has a great influence on the authentic population. I think the situation is the same in Poland, in Romania, where we participated in the summit, World Summit of Ukrainians in April, where this topic was raised as well. So I think that this cooperation between civil sector, between NGO and our organization, with local authorities and the national authorities during this conflict from the beginning, starting from February 2022, I hope that it is on the right level, and basically on our part, we were aiming to accompanying them so that we can stay coordinated on the territory where they have authority over. So in Prashiv city, 3 meetings were organized by the local authorities to coordinate the activities of the NGOs which operate in our city. And the similar meetings were held as well in our Slovak Ukrainian Cultural and Informative Center. So I hope that thanks to such joint meetings, it was possible to provide a proper job to coordinate it, and this led to the success in making refugees more aware about the accommodation conditions, about their right to education, medicine, etc. So I think that within this cooperation, we need again to put more effort. Even right now, as it was already said, we have our parliamentary elections, our authorities have changed, so we feel a bit of other approach to this question. But for all that, I think that it is important to tackle the first and the most pressing needs, even though sometimes we are restricted. Our organization, as Mr. Victor said, is dealing with the cooperation with Ukraine issues before. We already had such an experience with the international cooperation within cultural sector. So we tried to organize for our migrants the whole bunch of different cultural events. Some of them were annual ones or some brand new. And we also invited our partners from Ukraine, our colleagues from Ukraine, from Transcarpathia region, for example, and they were giving the performance. We had puppet theater from Uzhhorod, we had theater from Kolomyia, from other cities. Also, we invited the talented people from Ukraine who stayed here in Prashiv so that they could perform themselves, they could show their talents at the stage. We also have the children's drama theater for the refugees kids who are very active. And also there are many other examples. So I think that this is the question which has to be much broader. And in order to address it, right, you have to have many different way outs. Another question, the integration point. There's a very thick ice between integration and assimilation. And unfortunately, no one speaks about this in public, but I would like to say that yes, sometimes integration can grow into assimilation. And therefore, in our city, we have the Ukrainian United School named after Taras Shevchenko operating here in our city. This is the main school and gymnasium where there are around 100 pupils from Ukraine. Also, we have Prashev University, and before the war there were 500 or 700 students from Ukraine. Right now we have 1,500 students from Ukraine. So that's the powerful source, educational movement. We try to keep them up. We try to back them up and promote the Ukrainian education, because Ukrainian students, these were the first people who started helping within our coordinational center, and they started helping Ukrainians starting from 28th of December 2022. So they were very active and initiative with regard to the translation services or other related activities within our center. But also there are many kids, Ukrainian kids, who receive their education in Slovak schools in our country. So basically we were aiming to find and set up proper conditions so those kids had a chance to have at least some extracurricular Ukrainian language classes. So this question is still not settled, but there are such schools who are ready to provide such extracurricular Ukrainian language classes for Ukrainian students. So I hope that we're going to have such circles in future. So that was in addition to what was already mentioned about Slovakia, about the work with migrants. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pavlov, for the support of our project, and thank you for your endeavors and efforts in this regard. Let's make it for Bogdan, Mr. Bogdan Rashchinek. Can you hear me? If you can hear, the floor is yours. Greetings. Thank you for inviting me. I welcome you from Lviv. I welcome our distant and close friends. So what we had in Prague, we had a great workshop with the participation of our colleagues, and we invited representatives from different areas. These were authorities, both Ministry of Internal Affairs and other institutions who cooperate with us on the level of the non-governmental level. So what outcomes can be drawn? First of all, I would like to say that Czech Republic has more than 10 million population. Czech Republic is not a very big country, but it is a host country for Ukrainian refugees. And of course, it's absolutely different phenomenon. Along with other European countries, Czech Republic, along with other European countries, has been receiving labor migrants from Ukraine. And during these 30 years, there is a certain image of Ukrainians abroad, which right now, slowly but surely, is being changed. And it's the fact, war is changing this image as well. Europe witnesses that Ukraine is an extraordinary country with extraordinary people. With that in mind, I would like to say that 380,000 Ukrainians right now are residing in Czech Republic, and they have the temporary protection status of refugees. That's pretty high number, and there are more 200,000 Ukrainians who are residing in Czech Republic who don't have this temporary protection status. So there are around 500,000 Ukrainians currently residing in Czech Republic. So it means that so I think that this will be one of the biggest national minority in Czech Republic in the upcoming year. So this means that, yes, we had to be happy that we understand that Ukrainian ship is promoted here in Czech Republic, etc. But we still understand the very sad consequences in Ukraine due to this. So we have the organized Ukrainian ship duties, and we have again to get to another level of professionalism, of another level of cooperation, and also cooperation with the local authorities. So basically, this was what we discussed with the Ministry of Labor, etc. I also would like to mention the key problems which are witnessed right now. First of all, when we talk about the social vulnerable groups, that's very important topic, and Czech people consider this topic to be very important. It means that when there are mother with children with low income, disabled people, and other people, I think that Czech Republic is doing everything to support these vulnerable populations. Then we have something which resembles situations in 90s previous century. Sometimes this is abuse of the work force of Ukrainians. Unfortunately, this happens not only from the majority population's part or some companies, but also from the side of those Ukrainians who live in Czech Republic for a long while, who have the Czech citizenship or Czech companies, and these Ukrainians abuse the labor force of Ukrainians who just showed up. They use this human working potential. That's another, it's a phenomena, it's not new, but right now it's just enhanced. I know that something similar happens in other countries. And also we have our Ukrainians who are unfortunately part of these processes. So yeah, sometimes we have good people, everywhere we have good and bad people, but still we have to have this understanding that those people who have been working here for a while, they unfortunately do not have the full understanding of the situation. Maybe they unfortunately, another reason is that our Ukrainians do not speak Czech language and they just use them. All right. There is also another point, the low number of people who are engaged in criminal activities. Unfortunately, this also limits the activities of our Ukrainian ship in Europe. Sometimes these criminal activities are hidden. In Czech, everything is visible. And here I would like to say that why it is important, why the project is important, because within our framework of our round table, we had this discussion with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and then we formed the task force, which together with whom we are going to work on this in future. We have the critical moments cooperation, we call it like this. It means that when somewhere in Czech Republic, Ukrainian citizens, for example, take part in some kind of conflict, yes, we try to support, we try to cooperate with police, with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. And two more points here. These are well-known facts which are very, very important. First of all, this is education of the youth and kids. Yes, we have new schools. They call themselves Ukrainian schools, or maybe semi-Ukrainian schools, let's call them like this. And unfortunately, pupils do not attend these schools in a proper way because Czech Republic and other European countries, and we talk about this, not as a sad fact, but yes, there is still a lot of work going on so that our refugees can stay on their land. So representatives from other countries can say that yes, we would like your refugees to be repatriated, etc. But on the other hand, they do a lot of efforts so they stay in the host countries. Unfortunately, not a lot of finances are allocated to the potential of Ukrainians. It means that the organizations that are dealing with helping Ukrainians, they have to find financing from other projects or maybe even from financing from business, etc., in order to promote Ukrainianship. It means that, yes, this has to be understood by all the levels of the authorities. I would like to say that any authorities, they are not willing to support Ukrainian separatists. No, they want to allocate financing of the big projects, big European projects, and right now we talk about the tens and hundreds of millions. They are invested into the integration of Ukrainians. It's a canny way, really, and I think that each country would like to keep the new human resources within their territory. As we know, Europe is getting older, Europe has other problems with the birth rate, etc. I'm not gonna dig deep into other countries, but still we understand these are common problems. So the birth rate is very low. The new human resources, working resources, especially when we talk about intelligent and active Ukrainians who are right now living in Europe, and they are willing to keep it there. So they really finance integration of Ukrainians via different language courses, via changing their employment, via support, etc. I think every country can develop on this better. So what are our upcoming tasks? We have to keep this balance. It means, yes, we have to provide assistance to Ukrainians, no assimilation, discussion with the EU, with our representatives from our authorities. We have to highlight that we understand what these countries are doing. Unfortunately, we do not have any financial or other forces to change this direction, but they have to understand that we are well aware of the fact what they are doing and what is their course of action when it comes to the integration of Ukrainians. We need to prevent the full assimilations of Ukrainians. There should be people who have to decide where they are going to live. And also, it is important to support the reintegration, re-immigration of Ukrainians. Thank you for the project. Thank you for inviting me, being the part of it. And of course, it was very interesting on our part. Thank you, Mr. Bogdan. We are very interested and it was very useful for us. And what you have voiced right now, this thesis, this is the approval. This is the confirmation that all of the initiatives, they have evolved into the integration part. Therefore, I'm sure that we are going to go back to this topic, to the topic that was very actively discussed and worked on. We, as Ukrainians, we were working. Yes, we were differentiating these two concepts, integration versus assimilation. So we have to do all our best to prevent this assimilation, and we still need to, this is like overall task for us to prevent this assimilations and to provide the possibility for this large number of people to come back to Ukraine. Thank you, Mr. Bogdan, for your efforts, for your cooperation. And right now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Halina Andrushkos. She is the head of the Uniters Foundation. Ms. Halina, while you are connecting, I would like to say thank you to your grand support, for your initiatives, for being able to organize the workshop in Poland. It was very productive and there were lots of ideas. We have analyzed everything. So right now I would like to give you the floor, please. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yes, we can hear you very well. Of course, I would like to say thank you for the initiative, for the whole project, and we appreciate your efforts. I would like to mention this. We did this workshop before the elections here, and I would like to say that for us it was pretty complex because people who were invited, unfortunately, none of them could make it. Not all of them could make it, and this really showed their political attitude. And we just saw these connections with the political elections. But in a long way, we made that. It was a positive way for us to. It was a good forum for us to have this communication, live communications. We had a chance to share our experience. So thank you, Miss Irina, and thank you to Miyok for this possibility to be part of this project. To be honest, when it comes to Poland, Miss Oksana provided everything in an exhaustive manner. So basically, I don't want to reiterate that because it was very, very structurally defined. There were mentioned the problems and the processes which are ongoing, and our colleagues from Slovak and Czech Republic and other colleagues. So yes, I would like to. I totally agree with everything which was said by Mr. Bohdan. We face the same problems. Poland, for all the openness of the Poland, for being very strong provider of the services for the refugees, because we understand that was the big transportation humanitarian hub for the Ukrainian refugees, and they also provided support to Ukrainians. Right now, there is certain migration policy which encompasses, I'm talking about Poland, it encompasses the migration as a threat. And this is kind of dangerous phenomenon, dangerous tendency, because our migrants can be depicted as the threat. And what is offered, assimilation is offered instead of the bilateral integration. And this is witnessed on the system of education, where our children are obliged to attend Polish schools. Otherwise, they will not receive any allowances. Also, we understand that 150,000 children who are not visiting the schools. So they have strategy. They have the strategy of assimilation, where kids have to be assimilated within Polish environment. They have to learn Polish history, where there is a very great deal of bullying, because we provide psychological consultations. Our Ukrainian kids don't want to visit Polish schools, and Ukrainian schools are very limited with numbers. Unfortunately, these are just schools organized by NGOs and financed by NGOs themselves. We have the task force organized by Irina Vereshchuk, who actually tried to address this issue, the issue of Ukrainian education abroad. So we hope that this question will be addressed in the nearest future, because this topic is very, very relevant. We deal with the orphanages starting from 2014, and we hope that our children will be able to obtain Ukrainian education. We hope to have them back in future. This is one of the best topic, and all of the NGOs right now are concerned about this topic. Of course, we do our best, but still we understand that our voice is not enough, and we have some other effort backed up by the country on the level of ministries of education and other ministries. They need to have this dialogue, international dialogue, so that our Ukrainian countries can receive Ukrainian education simultaneously with the education in the host country. In Poland, we have the support, Ukrainian support points, and we have other problems starting from medicines, medical services, and finishing with burying. We have many requests, many challenges. We try to cope with them. We do our best. We try to gain financing wherever we can. We try to cooperate with our with authorities, and we also hope that everything's going to be fine in the long run. And thanks again for this experience. I don't want to, speak a lot. Miss Oksana was very exhaustive in the presenting, so I have nothing to add. Yes, we continue our work. We develop our cooperation, and we hope for the better, and we will reconstruct Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Halina, for your speech. Thank you for your enormous efforts. We had a chance to understand the work of the Uniters Center, and I would like to say that your presentation, your speech, can be divided into some quotes, and you can dwell upon these directions. So, and of course, this outlines the whole scope, this tremendous scope of work which is ahead of us. I'm not going to analyze what you have said, but everything you have said has an important, essential value. So thank you for being with us. I have here another person next to me, Ms. Christina Moldavchuk. She is a specialist on monitoring, assessment, accountability, and education. She is the representative of the Ukraine Wroclaw Foundation. Ms. Christina, thank you for coming here in person. And please, I would like to give you the floor. Of course, I'm very happy to be here in person. Thank you for the invitation. I know that my title, my post is very long, but I am the representatives of the NGO in Wroclaw. Basically, all of those NGOs we mentioned today, and I would like to back up the words by Ms. Oksana, Ms. Helena. They mentioned the situation in Poland. Our organization has been operating for more than 10 years, and we are a migrant organization which was set up by migrants. The organization operates in Wroclaw, so we have certain tasks, certain activities, integration, information, support. We are dealing with this. And I would like to mention that it's very important so that such organizations set up by Ukrainians, they are continuing functioning, because these organizations were first responders after the full-fledged invasion. We know that states are slow, NGOs are fast in such responses, and it's great that we were able to support migrants, because we have migrants on board of our organizations. They know what are their needs of the migrants. And it's very important for the Ukrainians to join such organizations so that we can help each other, etc. It's very pleasant that so many NGOs are part of these projects and that Ukraine is initiator of this project. Because the question of how to attract people to be reintegrated, yeah, it's very topical. We understand that we don't need to pay any effort to promote assimilation. No, we have to promote integration. We have to give the Ukrainian context to Ukrainians, and so that they will be able to take part in some cultural events, the events connected with Ukraine. We disseminate information about Ukraine, about the events there, and therefore one of the top tasks of ours is integration within Ukrainian context. Of course, within Polish, but in Ukrainian first and foremost. I was asked to say about our experience as an organization. A lot of things have been mentioned. Maybe I will tell one example, because of course we promote advocacy on different levels, starting from local authorities in Wroclaw. It's very simple because it's close, and ending with the national level. As Ms. Olena put it, NGO are taking part in consultations and different negotiations. They create recommendations, etc. Also, the migration policy was mentioned in October. The immigration strategy was set up. It received a bunch of critics, and it's very important then these organization exists because they have their voice, and their voice has to be heard. They create certain recommendations as well. And also, I would like to give you some example as for what our organizations have done. Back in 2018, where there were lots of Ukrainian migrants in Poland, in Wrocław, for example, like 1/6 citizens of Poland, it was Ukrainian, because there also have been the case when Ukrainians really wanted to migrate to Poland. And we started working with 2 people in Wrocław, and we were the pioneering organization in Poland who started implementing this initiative. We started working with schools, we wrote grants, we increased our assistance. And as for now, I would like to say that the questions of Ukrainian assistance in school, it is on the national level readings, and basically this is the component which is included into the educational program. So that was the example how NGO, even with 2 people, can start effort, and then they can go all the journey through up till the national level legislation. And right now we see already positive results in the educational sector. Of course, we trusted in our efforts, and I'm very happy to communicate with anyone I would like to tell about our experience. Of course, don't want to take a lot of time, but thank you for invitation. Thank you, Ms. Christina. We are a bit pressed on time. Of course, we will have the communication with you with great pleasure but in other format. Right now, I would like to say that we have a lot of representatives from Ukraine, those who are interested in the development of the cooperation between NGOs and local authorities. They are here right now. And I would like to give the floor right now, the short speech, Ms. Oksana Yurinets. She is the doctor of the economic studies and the professor of Lviv Polytechnics. She is the deputy of the Supreme Country of Ukraine. And Ms. Oksana, please, the floor is yours, because we know that you are a very active person. Please tell us about your ideas, about what you have said. Maybe you will have some recommendation, etc. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Your institute, your initiation, and with all in mind, I think that that was the cooperation between MIOC and between the MPs of Ukraine, because MIOC made very powerful analytical researches when we talk about the creation of Ukrainian policy of interaction and cooperation with the Ukrainians abroad. And today I would like to mention that your team has proved that right now you are fulfilling the function of a separate state institution. I think that your effort is such a powerful, even in comparison with other ministries, because you have laid a great foundation. Of course, right now to investigate the new ecosystem within Visegrad countries, it's not easy, but you managed to do that. And for right now, for us, it's very useful to hear this information. It's very nice for our intellectual background. What you are doing right now is also lays the foundation for the interaction and cooperation. And with this in mind, we are able to plan how to reconstruct Ukraine and how to plan ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you for cooperation with our NGO, because without your effort, we wouldn't be able to have the law on the transborder cooperation. Within the Committee of Euro Integration, where I used to work, I would like to highlight your accents, because you are putting right accents. And I think that, yes, we will raise the question about economical bonds between Ukrainians abroad, because this can be the powerful cooperation to understand why people left, how do they live right now, and what would be useful for them in terms of coming back and in terms of reconstruction of Ukraine. Thank you to the whole MIOC team. You are cool, you're awesome, and you are doing a great deal approaching our victory. Thank you, Ms. Oksana. It's always pleasure to hear such high estimation. And right now, I have one more idea in my mind, what we can do together with your NGO. And I would like right now to give the floor to Ms. Irina Temechko. She is the head of the Regional Development Agency in Lviv region. Thank you for being here with us. We are waiting for your assessment, and for further cooperation with you. So, Ms. Irena, thank you. Many thanks. Greetings to all the participants of the symposium. Thank you for the invitation. I would like to say that material is really, really appealing. Our institution analyzes the state regional policy in Ukraine according to their legislation, and today we talk a lot about the cooperation between NGOs and local authorities, local self-governance bodies, but unfortunately we do not speak about the advocacy of the Ukrainians. Yes, we talk about the areas of cooperation, but unfortunately we do not talk a lot about people. We have to talk about people. So yes, together with the partners, with the adjacent countries, with the representatives from different NGOs, you made this research and you raised not only the statistic data, but also you provided these examples of the best practices. And what I like the most here is your analytical conclusions, where you raised the question about the challenges, networking and cooperation. They are very important. And right now in Lviv, we have 73 territorial hromadas. And that's very important to disseminate these guides, these information booklets within the CTC, because it's very important to understand for them these best practices, successful practices, to be used by their self-governance body. And because this actually supports Ukrainian interest, and this also supports coming back of those refugees who are abroad right now. You have managed to translate this in different languages. It's very right step, because it's important to present this material abroad, and this will show that we value their support, that we analyze, that we promote. It's very important to have such materials abroad. Thank you for your effort in this. I know that it took you many years to implement these, and you did that on many platforms. So you had the Ukrainians in mind, in your heart. Therefore, our agency is ready to cooperate with you in future, and we hope that together with you we will build up something useful for Ukrainians. Yeah, we are obliged to. We must do that, because there are some questions which state is overburdened with. So therefore we have to take off this burden of the shoulders of our country, and we have to do what we can do. It's the sample of our resilience, of our invincibility. This what we can do in the rear. In the war, we can work, find this pain and try to get rid of this pain and move along. We have Ms. Halecka with us. It is great because we were waiting for her. She's the MP of the Lviv Regional Council. She is here with us online. So please, Ms. Natalia, the floor is yours. Natalia, please switch on your mic. Good day. Do we have any picture? Just a second. Greetings, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Miss Irina, unfortunately, I'm unable to connect with my image on. Okay, just speak. Thank you very much for the invitation. It is a very interesting event. For me, it was very important to understand the practice of the temporary protection of Ukrainians in the European countries. I would like to say that, yes, this topic is very topical, and because right now in the EU, the question about how the temporary protections regime has to be prolonged or not, or in which format it has to be done, because it's understandable that they cannot prolong it for eternity, and maybe they need to have some other mode set up. And especially it is about not about adjacent but some more distant European countries, in such countries as Belgium, Netherlands, France, other countries. So there should be the question about the adequate treatment of Ukrainians. So that's kind of acute and political question, and it's important for us to have our Ukrainian narrative, because there are many organizations and even pro-Russian organizations that actually compile the anti-Ukrainian narrative, which also hampers the situation of Ukrainian refugees, and also it diminishes the efforts of the European countries with regard of supporting Ukrainians. Therefore, this research has an important role, and this guide that you have prepared, it's a great value, and it's great that it has been translated. So I think we really need to put this research to the European agencies who are responsible in decision making when it comes to the temporary protection mode, because it is important to prolong this temporary protection, and we need to preserve these conditions, because unfortunately we do not know how many migrants will come in the coming months and years in the EU. Therefore, I would like to encourage, to enhance, and to disseminate this research to other countries, to other EU countries. Maybe it would be necessary to incorporate Western countries, Western European countries, because there is certain disproportion between the Ukrainian refugees in adjacent countries and in those Western European countries. So I think that these could help to unveil some hidden reasons for the EU countries, because sometimes they can have more budget financial possibilities than, for example, Poland or Slovak Republic or other when it comes to the support of Ukrainians. I talk about the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany. Maybe they have to be encouraged to host more Ukrainian refugees in order not to create some pressure on the adjacent with Ukrainian countries. Thank you for such deep analysis. Thank you for this interesting scientific, analytical research, and I wish you success in your further research activities, so that this research can become the tool of the advocacy of changes to the treatment of Ukrainian refugees and protection of their status. Thank you, Ms. Natalie. It's very important for us to hear such expert assessment with the one voiced here, and I hope that we will hear some more. And I know that we have Mr. Andrei Medved. Could you please introduce yourself? Andrei Medved, I am professor of the Lviv Trade and Economic University. I deal with the rights protection. Thank you very much for the organizing this symposium. Thank you for this invitation. It's very essential experience for me. It's very important for us to have in mind then that our refugees, they still remain Ukrainian citizens. And as you have mentioned, right now it's very difficult for the state to keep up this burden. So therefore it's very important for the public sector to do one's part, and it's important also to protect the rights of Ukrainian citizens. This is the part of the obligations of our civil society. And how we're going to implement this will be the way how the citizenship of Ukrainians will be valued in the world, and therefore this will be reflected in the way how we Ukrainians can rebuild our country in future. We have to understand that every country takes care of their own interests. We cannot reject that. But we appreciate the efforts made by our adjacent countries, by the Visegrad countries. They really helped us in need. They opened their borders, they supported us. But apart from this, we Ukrainians, who were always respecting oneself, we cannot be the burden for our societies, for our countries. Therefore, our main task right now is to support our Ukrainian refugees, to give them choice, but also to do everything so that they would be attracted to get back to Ukraine. Thank you, Mr. Professor, for having time and be here. Could you please, I hope we can keep in touch. We will invite you to implement some joint projects, because the more we do, the better the success. Maybe some other remarks, dear colleagues? Ms. Helena Fisuk. Dear colleagues, dear participants, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to be here in person. I am the head of the folk museum named after Taras Shevchenko and the president of the Ukrainian cultural organization Rostochane. I organized more than 20 libraries in Europe for Ukrainian refugees, for those who fled from war. These libraries are in Italy, in Poland, in Croatia, in Austria. And with this in mind, I would like to say that we need to have our cultural perspectives in mind in these countries, in those countries, host countries, especially in those mentioned today during this symposium. I know that there are certain libraries in Poland, and our Ukrainians visit these libraries. But also I have one very beautiful example. When our participants, when they organize literary competitions, unfortunately, the books, they remain in the NGOs, and I hope that we organize also competition, and around 600 participants take place in this competition. And then after this, we have the 600 books, and we can transfer them to these libraries. So I hope you can do it as well. So I wish you fruitful cooperation and results in the cultural direction, Miok. We are run out of time. We have to conclude. So to conclude, I would like to say, first of all, I would like to say thank you to our partners, because without their support, without their work and efforts, without their outcomes, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to make this analytical work. Secondly, I would like to say thank you to the Visegrad Fund for your support and understanding of the importance of this work here. And also, I would like to say thank you, because we will always remember the efforts made by the countries, Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia, those who we have this close cooperation with, for the support that we received, for the aid that you provided, for the shelter that you organized, for being there in need, and for provided everything that our migrants needed when the full-scale invasion started. Ukraine knows how to remember and how to value. Thank you to all the participants, and I hope that our analytics, our practices, right now we will roam around European countries, and people will get the hang of it, will take advantage of them. Also, I know that this material will be useful for our local communities, Ukrainian communities. I know that we have a lot of other questions during our symposium. Therefore, we invite you all to have the informal conversation in our buffet in our university here on this floor, and there we will have a chance to drink some coffee and to discuss what you have in mind. Thank you very much for participation, and see you next time.